That's singer David. A lot of conflicting information about him and the body found in his Tesla. That's what's trending in true crime this morning, and whether the remains of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez were discovered partially frozen or not. The Los Angeles police saying now it's not true. Adding, really? Frozen? How do you think she was in there for weeks and weeks in the blazing Southern California summer sun? Of course, her body was not frozen. That's what the LAPD is now saying. Court order requested by the LAPD, though, has halted the release of all records and details associated with her death. Singer David has been identified as a potential suspect. There's word of another possible unidentified second suspect. Multiple sources say David is no longer cooperating with authorities, but no arrests have been made. So we're asking why all the conflicting information, and wouldn't it just be easier to release the official information to stop the rumors and find out exactly what happened to Celeste? Well, attorneys Franz Borkart, Casey Early, and law enforcement expert Sonny Slaughter still here. Sonny, start with you on this. The investigation, it's long. On one end, no one's going anywhere. The body decomposed. What do you think's happening here, and what are the hurdles for the LAPD in terms of figuring out what happened?
You know, I think this case is so interesting. But I think that is really important, as much as we all want the information, in order to protect the integrity of the investigation, which is still ongoing, that they need to tamper down on the release of any information, because it can interfere with the investigative process. While I'm a proponent of sharing information with the public for transparency, I am also a staunch proponent of ensuring that law enforcement is doing everything that they must do and can do to get the right person, because far too often there's questions about whether the person that they have in custody is the right person. And if we don't protect the integrity of the investigation, they can't ensure that they have everything that they need, and then they come up against someone like me behind the scenes saying, you didn't do this right, and that's why it's falling apart. So while we want information, they need to hold it close to the vest in order to get the right information and the right culprits of this particular crime.
The problem, of course, with a high-profile case like this one is the wrong information gets out into the public sphere. We've got conflicting information basically from the beginning. Frozen body, that was out there, that was floated out there. We also had these reports that she was dismembered or decapitated. Well, that's not clear anymore. And then David's cooperation. At first, David's people came out right away. Oh yes, cooperating, doing everything we can. And now we're hearing again from whispers out of the LAPD sources is that no, he's not. He's not cooperating at all. And so this is an issue, I would think, in a high-profile case, Casey, because if I'm the family and I'm thinking, what, she was frozen and she was decapitated and her arms and legs were possibly taken off, it's horrifying. So they want to do some damage control on one end. On the other hand, they're shutting down the medical examiner, don't want anything released. Well, your thoughts overall on how they're handling it and how tricky it is, really, this tightrope?
Yeah, I mean, there is several different types of information that's coming out that is conflicted. And I think that this is the law enforcement trying to give information to the public, but also continue their investigation. I mean, this case is filled with questions, but there's also some obvious things that even the public can see. We knew that he had some involvement, right? But typically in cases like this, and I deal with murder cases all the time, what law enforcement or even the state will do is take the weakest link. So now there is reports that there was a second possible suspect that assisted with dismembering or transporting the body. So maybe there's a possibility later on down the road when charges are formally filed that they'll take that weakest link and possibly use him to testify against David, who we all know is the prime suspect in this case. We know that there could have been a possible relationship. We know the matching tattoos and the possible motive. But in this case, there's a possibility that the second suspect may testify against him and then be charged with accessory after the fact. But again, this is typical with high-profile cases. You want to give some information to the public, but the downfall is if it's still an ongoing investigation, typically that changes. So this is typical.
Franz, how important is the fact that her body was in that frunk, as they call it, the front part of that Tesla, for weeks and decomposed to the point where there's maybe a situation where they don't know the cause of death. They don't have enough from her remains to really build a murder case, if indeed that's what they believe happened. But because if you think of it, could have been a drug overdose, getting rid of the body, could have been a myriad of things. How difficult might this case be if and when it enters a courtroom?
I think it becomes difficult to convict for a murder if you can't determine what the cause of death is. It doesn't necessarily mean you can't pursue some kind of wrong behavior. Look, there's a phrase, possession is 9/10 of the law. Where's the body? If the body's in your trunk, you've got an issue. And just because they haven't moved on him yet doesn't mean they won't move on him. But bigger picture is if they can't determine the cause of death, that's going to be a big problem. But also the other piece is, Ted, this is not just a homicide. There are other major red flag questions. How old is she? What was she doing where she was? These are questions that are going to possibly leave prosecutors some wiggle room on what they can decide to pursue and when they decide to pursue it.
Absolutely. And this is an up-and-coming artist who was really taking off. And there were rumors, online that this was an inappropriate relationship. We're talking about a 14-year-old girl involved possibly with this singer. Sonny, getting someone to crack, I would think, is massive in a case like this, and time is on investigators' side.
You are absolutely right. They need the right person. They need them to be skillful in their questioning and technique. And I think they're going to take as much time as they need to get it, if they want to get it done right. And as Franz just said, there are some underlining things. Is she the only one? And I'm talking about not necessarily that's deceased, but potential for other individuals who are young, who are in this orbit. Any other sexual abuse, any other trauma, what's going on around here? So they need a person with excellent investigative skills, particularly someone who can interview really, really well and relate to the individual. We'll see what happens.
And Casey, this is an up-and-coming artist. This isn't someone with a ton of banked credit, if you will, in the public sphere. His notoriety, it's not going to help him at all, is it, in terms of getting any sort of break?
No, absolutely not. We know that no one is above the law in this case. And I think, just as my colleague stated, that if this was an inappropriate relationship, could there have been others, maybe with his notoriety or maybe with his celebrity and fame, there might be possible other alleged victims who was in a relationship with him and may come forward, which will possibly help the state have some form of motive as to why this was committed, although we have our speculation. But we know motive is not even necessary. We just need to know that a crime was committed. These elements were met by the state, and he was the one that committed the crime. So his fame, his celebrity has no bearing on this case.
Yeah, the crime that is committed, what was the crime? Was it murder? Did she die accidentally? Did they freak out and dead girl in the house, put her in the trunk? There's so many unanswered questions. We'll see as this thing moves along. But it's trickling out of Los Angeles. That's in terms of information, that's for sure.